Coming to you from the studios of Annunciation Radio in Holland, Ohio, it's time for Night Talk. My name, as always, is Eric Loprete, and today we are covering something that affects a lot of our members and a lot of our non-members and parishioners, and that, of course, is retirement. What happens when it comes? Where do I go now that it's here? And I would be the first to admit I'm 39 years old, and I've got a few more years to go before I can officially start worrying about it. However, like I said, this is something that's definitely worth discussing, especially when it comes to how the Knights of Columbus could be the answer, or at least part of the answer, to what happens to a man once he retires and where he goes. To help me do this, we welcome in a longtime friend of the show, and the second best guest we've ever had, Mr. Dan Rogland. How are you doing, sir?
Good, Eric. Thanks.
Excellent. Well, welcome in, and thanks once again for being on the show. Now, Dan, obviously, this is a very weird time, or it can be a weird time in a man's life, where the book turns to another page, and they kind of find themselves in a brand new chapter of their lives, one that's been unwritten. And maybe some are unsure of how to start said new chapter. However, if they are a Christian man who still wants to be involved in both their parish and community, the Knights of Columbus might just be the answer. Don't you agree?
Oh, I agree. Absolutely. It's kept me extremely busy the last 2 years since my retirement.
Well, we're going to go into that subject and more here on the program today. But first, as always, we begin the prayer, and we want to thank Katie Loprete for providing said prayer. So we'll start in the name of the Father, and the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Lord, as you did during your ministry on earth, please help us to accept one another, for all our people meant to grow in faith as the disciples you want us to be. Amen. In the name of the Father, and the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Amen. Welcome in once again to Night Talk. My name is Eric Loprete. With me today is Mr. Dan Rogland, and we are covering the subject of retirement and what happens once you retire, and how the Knights of Columbus might be able to help you out. So, Dan, are you ready to go, sir?
Yes, sir.
Absolutely. Okay. Well, then let's kind of get started. And obviously, Dan, you had a very successful career. You retired not long ago. How long ago was it?
It'd be 2 years, July.
2 years in July. So you seem to be our in-house expert on this topic. So let me kind of start at square one. What was it like getting ready to retire? What were some of your thoughts? What were some of your feelings?
Absolute fear. I've been working since I was about 8 years old. Grew up on a farm, hay farm, raised cows and horses and that. So it was 7 days a week. You were taking care of animals, taking care of the farm, taking care of things. And then I went to college for a year and found out I couldn't work full time and go to college full time. I went to work for Toledo Edison in 1978 at the powerhouse as a plant helper, actually, just learning the trade. Ended up retiring 2 years ago as the safety and security manager, so I had a lot of growth in my career. Spent 45 years in the powerhouse, which is a long time to just step away from and go, okay, what do I do now? There's that book of life. It gets to retirement. The only thing on the page says good luck. I grew up there. I got married while I was working at the Edison. I raised 4 children during that time. Now I've got 4 grandchildren. And it all seemed like it happened in the snap of a finger.
Yeah, and that's one thing that I've always, especially, like I said, I'm 39 years old, so I've still got some time, but, a lot of our members or people who I hang out with, they are getting to that age, and I certainly agree with you that fear can definitely kind of overtake people. I mean, recently, my father, after a very long career, he recently retired, and I think that while it's not a bad thing to fear things, I think it helps you to look outside of your comfortability. Would you agree?
Yeah, and I didn't think I was ready to retire. I thought I'd work till 67 or 68. It was actually my granddaughter that talked me into it. She came over our house and she says, "Hey, Papa, can I spend the summer with you guys instead of going to daycare?" And I went, "Sure." And she looked at me and she says, "Well, can you work from home like you did before?" And I went, "No, we don't do that anymore," because that was just during COVID. and she started crying.
Oh.
And I looked at her, and I looked at my wife, and I went, I can do something better than that. And she goes, what's that? And I went, I can retire. She says, what does that mean? I says, I don't know, but it means I don't have to ever go back to work again. And she went, woohoo! And my wife looked at me from across the room and went, woohoo! And then we figured it out from there.
Now, staying on the subject of fear, what I mean, obviously, what do I do now is obviously one of the biggest fears. But what were some of the other fears that maybe you had?
The biggest thing was finances. What was I going to do for income? And then I got online and I applied for my Social Security, and I was shocked to find out what I was going to get from Social Security and then my retirement. And then I talked to our Knights of Columbus insurance agent and found out about our opportunities to convert my 401k to an IRA, because at the time it was a different political time, and my investments were making about 1.8% on an annual basis, because part of it was gaining, a lot of it was losing, and I was scared to death of losing all that. And he showed me what we could do with an IRA, and I liked the security of it and made that change as soon as I retired.
Well, and we all know that there's excellent programs in the Knights of Columbus insurance program that definitely help our members out as they get closer to retirement. In fact, we just had Jason Stoss on a couple weeks ago. If you want and go back, you can listen to the archived episode here on Annunciation Radio YouTube page. So yeah, absolutely. That's definitely something the Knights can help out with too. So now let's go kind of back to retirement. There's this big adjustment period. Like you said, you were in charge. Now you're not. I mean, you're in charge of you're second in command in your household. I know how things go. But, as far as that adjustment period, what's that like when it's that first day after your last day?
It took me about 3 weeks to actually figure out I wasn't just on vacation. Unfortunately, my mom had passed away just 2 weeks before my retirement, so I was overwhelmed and engulfed in all that responsibility with her farm up in Erie, Michigan, and all that, trying to take care of all of that. So that kept me super busy for, several months going into it. And again, it just took some days. I just had to sit there and go, okay, what am I doing today? And then I'd ask my wife, what am I doing today?
That's always a good frame of reference, by the way. When you don't know what to do, ask your wife. Oh, goodness. And then let's kind of keep building on that. Explain the change. You just kind of mentioned it. You're going from working every day to where now you have to take charge of your day-to-day activities and staying active. And just kind of describe what's some of the things you did to fill in that time.
Well, it's kind of funny. I'm really not in charge. I'm just under new management, as my wife says. And that's my wife and my granddaughter. And, the nice part is being able to just up and decide to go do something and not have to worry about getting a day off work. For the first time in 45 years, work didn't come first. In my job, I spent 45 years of my career being on call 7 days a week. If the phone rang, I was going to work no matter what else was going on, because that was my responsibility. And to just walk away from that was kind of strange, because before, if my phone rang, especially being a safety professional, I knew something was wrong. So I had to learn that when my phone rang, something wasn't wrong. And to answer the phone and not go, oh, great, now what? To answer the phone and say, okay, what's going on? What do you need? So it was a big change mentally and I think physically, because, my sleep changed and I learned how to relax a little bit. It was starting to become very fun.
And I know, physical activity is also another big thing that, we should be taking advantage of at any point really in our lives. But I mean, were there things that you were doing as far as, maybe going on walks or things like that, just to kind of fulfill your day just to make sure you were moving around?
Well, at first, again, I was taking care of all of my mom's stuff and everything, but then it took me about 3 months to really understand that, hey, I'm retired. And it hit me when we made our first trip to Myrtle Beach. It was about 2 o'clock in the afternoon. We were walking around downtown Myrtle Beach there, and there was a little small bar restaurant there. And my wife says, hey, let's stop in and get a sandwich. So we stopped in, and I saw a sign above the bar. It says, world's greatest old-fashioned.
Oh, well, that's a big sign, yeah.
Yeah, I love old-fashioned.
Well,
so I hesitated, and my wife, Mary Jo, looked across the table at me, and she said, hey, stupid, you're retired. Nobody cares if you have a drink at 2 o'clock in the afternoon. And she ordered me a drink. And I'll tell you what, I was shocked. I just totally relaxed. And, in fact, I sent Rob Malone and Doug Homer a text going, I figured out retirement. I can do what I want as long as the wife says it's okay. And, the biggest thing I can tell people is find something to do. Get involved. I've made the comment several times since I've retired. I don't know how I ever had time to go to work.
Well, we are certainly going to be discussing some of the things that people can do, especially in the nights, here in our second segment, which is coming up here in another couple minutes. But let's kind of, you're sitting down with your wife, you were having, she ordered you a drink, and you kind of felt like this sense of relaxation rush over you. So I guess really, was that the first time that you really embraced the aspect of retirement?
Yeah.
Or had you made peace with it prior?
No, I think that just that moment finally told me that, hey, you're retired. You don't have to worry about what anybody else thinks. I'm there with my wife, who I've been with for 46 years, and she says, you can do what you want to do. We can go for a walk this afternoon. We can go here. We can go there. Where do you want to go? What do you want to do? And it was just scary that I could actually make a decision what I wanted to do instead of, well, what about work? What's going on there? Who might get hurt? Who may have a hiccup? What phone call may I get next that I got to leave what I'm doing? Because that just doesn't happen anymore. If I get a phone call and I choose to go, it's because I want to.
And that's got to be a great feeling.
Oh, it's totally different.
So you finally, so just kind of real quick as we wrap up this first segment, can you kind of go in depth, was there prayer that helped you get, as well as that helped you get to that peace as well? Did you look inward spiritually to kind of get that peace to know that, hey, I worked a great career, I did my job, and now I get a chance to relax?
Yeah, there was a book, and I'm trying to remember what book it was that I was reading at the time, and actually, it was about converts, because I'm a convert to the Catholic faith. Mm-hmm. And it was about converts and that and different phases of your life. And I just kind of saw myself in that realization that, hey, I'm set. I'm where I need to be in life. And now I can just concentrate on my next steps. What's going on today? I used to sit at night, about 10 o'clock at night with my planner, open up my planner and think, okay, what do I got to get done tomorrow? Well, you could ask my wife. That don't happen anymore.
Well, Dan, thank you so much. This has been a great first segment, and we are going to get more into this subject as we come back. You're listening to Night Talk here on Annunciation Radio.
Habemus Papam. We have a Pope. Bishop Daniel Thomas here, greeting you and greeting our Holy Father, Pope Leo XIV, united with all the priests, deacons, consecrated religious and lay faithful, throughout our Diocese of Toledo and throughout the whole world. We rejoice in the election of His Holiness, Pope Leo XIV. What an extraordinary gift to the Church. His first words so powerful, the Easter words of Jesus, peace be with you. How blessed that He asked all of us at the end of the very first words as our new Pope to pray the Hail Mary together with Him. Let's join our prayers that the Lord will strengthen him with wisdom, courage, and love as he faithfully shepherds the flock of Christ around the world. Ad multos annos. To many years, Pope Leo.
Hi, this is Bill Scheibel from St. Joseph Parish in Marblehead, where it's always a beautiful day to listen to Annunciation Radio.
Well, hello and welcome back into Night Talk. Once again, my name is Eric Loprete. Joining me today is Mr. Dan Rogland, and we are discussing how the Knights of Columbus may be an answer for those who are recently retired. But before we go back into that, we do have some council announcements because, as always, the Knights of Columbus are staying busy, especially as the summer heats up. Sign up for the tractor pull in August has begun. Please contact Dave Lewis from the Bowling Green Council if interested. Also, Bowling Green Council will be participating in their Corpus Christi procession. That'll be Sunday, June 22nd after 10:15 Mass at St. Al's in Bowling Green. And one change to be noted is that the St. Joseph Amami chicken barbecue chicken dinner will actually be Saturday, May 31st. So you can go ahead and start picking up your pre-sale tickets now. See any member for details. St. John the 23rd Council will be having their 2025 charity golf outing on Saturday, July 19th at Riverby Hills Golf Club. Registration begins at 7 a.m. Shotgun start at 8:30. If interested in sponsoring or playing, contact Tom Finch at kofctodd@gmail.com. Council 14344 River East Mother Teresa will be hosting their past Grand Night dinner on September 13th. Council members and past Grand Nights of Council 14344 can actually contact myself at Eric Loprete 4@gmail.com should they wish to join us. The 126th Annual State of Ohio Knights of Columbus Convention is set. It's going to be this weekend. Please pray for all those going and for the candidates running for state warden, both Stu Vetter and Mr. Greg Singler. St. Rose Council will also be hosting a golf outing in August at Stone Ridge in Bowling Green. Please contact Mike Kelly if interested in playing or sponsoring. And finally, Off the Streets drop-off points will continue at St. Joseph Maumee every Saturday starting at 8 a.m. and at St. Ignatius in Oregon the last Saturday of the month from 11 until 1. And Dan, if I'm not mistaken, you've got some Color Corps news.
Yes, I am the commander for Assembly 2800 as well. Trying to keep busy.
There you go.
So what we got going on is actually start tomorrow evening, Mass for the Pope Leo at the Cathedral at 6 p.m. as requested by the Bishop. On the 24th, Saturday morning, we have priesthood ordination. We have 3 gentlemen going to come into the priesthood. Mass time is 10 o'clock at the Cathedral. On Sunday, the 25th, we're going to be assisting another service area by helping out with the Honor Guard at their first Mass celebration for Father Eric Kaufman at St. John the Baptist Catholic Church, 109 Main Street in Glandorf, Ohio, and that Mass time is at 3 o'clock p.m. On the 26th, we actually have 2 Masses in the morning for Memorial Day. Assembly 807 is going to handle Memorial Day Mass at Calvary Cemetery, and Mass time is at 9 o'clock. Assembly 2000 is going to handle Memorial Mass at St. Ignatius Catholic Church in the cemetery at 9 a.m. as well. On May 30th, Feast of St. Joan of Arc Mass at St. Joan of Arc Church. Mass time is 6 o'clock, and an ice cream social will follow the Mass.
Well, that's always fun.
And then in June, we have the homeschooler graduation Mass at the Cathedral at 7 o'clock p.m. on the 3rd. And planned right now is Sunday, June 22nd at 8:30 p.m. in the evening will be a Corpus Christi march at St. Ignatius Church.
And we will have more information on that Corpus Christi March here in the next coming weeks as that is being planned. And Father Chris over there at St. Ignatius certainly has some very grand plans for that. So we're certainly looking forward to that. You know, at the past segment, we were kind of talking about your experiences, what you were going through when you retired and some of the experience. But now we want to kind of focus on how the Knights of Columbus might be an answer for some of our Catholic men who might be getting ready to retire or who are currently retired. So we really want to start right there. And, how do you think the Knights could be a great resource for those recently retired?
Well, there's so many opportunities within the Knights of Columbus. There's always groups that we support that can use help, whether it's collecting or distributing food for those in need, or sorting and delivering coats for kids for our local schools, or helping out with our Off the Streets program that St. Joe's Maumee and St. Ignatius parishes run every month. We do furniture collections, and then we also do furniture deliveries out to folks that are getting off the streets and are in need of our help to get started and start a new life for themselves.
Yeah, and I think that's really important that you brought up is that, they're starting a new life. And what better way to start that life than by becoming involved in your community? I mean, because that's what it's all about. And Dan, correct me if I'm wrong. We don't care how old you are. We want you.
Nope.
We'll take you, and there's always going to be a place for you to do something, correct?
Yep. I mean, when we're doing collections, Eric's our youngest guy there usually, and I'm 67. John is in his 70s. We've got other guys that are in between those age groups. So there's times I'm just standing there holding the door. There's other times I'm trying to help haul a couch. It just depends who we've got, what we're doing, and honestly, what we feel like doing at the time. There's days that I don't want to pick up a lamp, let alone pick up a couch. But, we find ways to help our community and do different things. I know getting more and closer with my parish activities because I've actually got time now. I'm not looking at Saturday and Sunday trying to get everything done that I had to get done all week because I was at work 10 or 12 hours a day. And in fact, Father Chris invited me the other night at dinner with a group of guys. He says, "Hey, Dan, you're retired. Why don't you come help me with masses?" And I says, "Help you with masses? Do what?" He says, "You could be an altar boy." I says, "Father, I've never been an altar boy. I'm a convert, remember?" He says, "We'll teach you. You'll look good in all white."
I'm looking forward to you being an altar boy.
Trust me, many people are.
Hey, it's been a while for me since I donned the white gown, but, I would certainly show up at Mass to see Dan Rogland wear one. So
I am hoping for no lightning.
It's supposed to be nice that day, so we'll see what happens. And then, one of the other great things I think that the Knights do for people is it provides a sense of structure to their lives. And not so much that the structure is overwhelming or overbearing on people, but, just having that corporate-like structure set up to the Knights, I think is so important for a lot of these guys, especially ones who do come from even you came from a safety background. We have men that are coming, who used to be CEOs, who ran their own business for a number of years. Can you speak to just how important that structure is?
For me, personally, it's great. I've been an officer in the Knights of Columbus since I joined. These guys drugged me in, kicking and screaming and, got me into the chairs and started moving up. In fact, currently I'm getting ready to assume the responsibilities for the second time as navigator for the Monsignor Robert J. Yates Assembly, 2000 4th degree.
Yes, you are.
And as the Toledo Diocese District Deputy Coordinator, which I'll assist 14 district deputies to coach and guide the 68 Knights of Columbus councils in the Toledo Diocese. But you can be as busy as you want. I like to be busy. My whole career I've been busy and trying to juggle things. I was when I worked at the Edison, I worked there all day. At night, instead of sleeping, I was either coaching high school soccer or I was running with the local fire department, running rescues and fires all night. So being busy is kind of what I do. So, guys look at me and they go, "How do you do all this?" I says, one thing at a time, and you just figure it out and work through it.
Yeah, and I was really glad that you hit on a few points in what you just said. One of the most important, just staying active but you can pick out when you want to be active, and I think that's a huge relief because I know a lot of guys and I've heard this from a number of people who are non-Knights is, oh man, like they see someone like you or they see someone who like Rob Malone or they see someone who's extremely busy and they're always wrapped up in Knights and they go, well, I want to be involved. I don't know if I want to be that involved. I don't know if I want, I don't want to just jump into the deep end of the pool, so to speak. However, you can wade into the deep part of the pool or you can stay in the shallow end. It just doesn't matter. But there is a place for you. And that must have been a great deal to you, especially like I said, as you were getting ready to retire. And I'm sure it's got to mean something to people who are just retiring who aren't sure how active they want to be.
I kind of grew up with a mantra from my grandfather that says, lead, follow, or get out of the way. Well, I've always followed my grandfather's lead and led. Yeah. Okay? If you got a better idea, I'll follow. But if you don't, or if you want to hem-haw around, let's go. The biggest thing I can tell you is get involved some way, somehow. Do something. You may find something you truly like. I had a Knight 2 years ago. After 6 months of being a new Knight, he says, Dan, why am I a Knight? What are we doing? And I went, give me till tomorrow. And he says, okay. Well, the next day I called him and I says, hey, we're going to go deliver coats. In fact, you're going to take them to one school and I'm going to take them to another. Well, he took a load of coats over to the school. He got hugs from the secretaries and the teachers, and he was received like he was bringing them their last meal. They were just overwhelmed, and he called me up. He says, you got me. I went, yep, I knew it. I says, once you got involved and you got a taste of what we do, I got you. So now he's the guy that calls me at 9 o'clock in the morning, says, hey, I'm at Myers, and they got stocking caps for $1 a piece. I just bought 200 of them. I'm dropping them off to your house. Okay, I'm awake. I'll meet you in the driveway.
So it's just being presented. It's not being afraid to just try something new.
Right. I mean, get involved. Help others. Help yourself. Don't just sit on the sidelines and watch your retirement years just go by. You've worked all these years to be able to do what you would want to do. And, yeah, there's a lot of guys that are so wrapped up in their careers, they forget, hey, I'm going to retire, and what am I going to do? Am I going to play golf every day? Do I even play golf? Do I play pickleball? Do I chase grandkids? Pick something. Get involved in the Knights and find a program. Build a bed. Help with Father Dave Kirk does a lot with Habitat for Humanity. Drive a couple nails to help somebody get started in a new life. Do something. Don't just sit there, and basically die. Find something to do. Find something that interests you and do it.
I was going to ask you for a last-second pitch for the Knights, and I think that you just covered it perfectly. So, Dan Rogland, thank you very much once again for joining us here today. And for all those out there, if you are just getting ready to retire or you are retired and you're a Catholic man, please speak to a Knights of Columbus member, speak to a council, just see what it is that you may be able to do, because that little bit may be a world of difference in someone else's lives and this community. So once again, just want to thank Mr. Rogland for being on. As always, thank Annunciation Radio for having us on. You've been listening to Night Talk here on Annunciation Radio. Have a great weekend, everyone.
Take care, everyone.